This is a photo of me and Mr. Keith Anderson. I interviewed Mr. Anderson back in 2019 for the What's the Scuttlebutt Podcast. He was a World War II veteran and a member of the 8th Air Force. Now, as many of you know, this year was the 80th anniversary of D-Day. And so we decided to do something different this year. Instead of just doing a regular podcast, we decided, hey, let's do 20-30 minutes of original content. And then I'll go back and take some interviews of some of the vets I was privileged enough to interview. Cut them together, put up a montage, and then maybe that'll also encourage people to go back and listen to the full interviews. And so when I was editing the interview with Mr. Anderson, in the interview I asked him, I said, do you remember the names of any of the planes you flew? He said, we only named one plane, and we named it after the ex-girlfriend of one of our crew members. Her name was Annie. And we named the plane AnyTime Annie. And he said, well, at the time, the 8th Air Force was quickly upgrading these planes with the latest technology. And so they only flew AnyTime Annie once or twice, and then it got sent back for upgrades, and then it was issued to another group. Sadly, that group was shot down, and AnyTime Annie was lost. And so after I got done editing, I went online and said, well, let's see if I can find any photos of AnyTime Annie so we can share it with our audience. And I found one, and it was for sale on eBay. So here is a photo of AnyTime Annie. Not sure who that gentleman is. And Mr. Keith Anderson and his flight crew named that was shortly lost. So I thought it'd be cool to have in our podcast studio a photo of AnyTime Annie for What's the Scuttlebutt, seeing how I interviewed probably the last living member of the crew who named and flew that plane.